It's hard to come to terms with a violent nature.
Or get your hands on somebody, huh? Maybe a little bit scared. Scared about what that means.
Retribution is the closest any of us will ever get to justice.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my Daredevil Born Again Episode 4 trailer video. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. They're changing the schedule a little bit in the next couple weeks for the way they release episodes too. So we'll explain what's going on with that and why the schedule is so weird with the way they're dropping episodes. Normally, like all Marvel shows in the Disney Plus era, they tend to drop episodes 1 per week, but in a couple weeks, they'll be releasing 2 episodes at the same time. They might wind up doing that again for the finale too, just because they're trying to get through all the episodes before and/or Season 2 starts. So we'll explain why they're doing that, because there are a couple episodes in particular that they're grouping together because the narrative just connects them. It just provides an opportunity for them to drop both of them at the same time. Where does a really good lawyer go when he can't get justice from the court system or the police and he needs someone to dish out some punishment? If you're brand new to the channel, I'm doing videos for all the episodes just like the classic Netflix series. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. The really big thing going on in the next couple of episodes, just in general, like this next part of the story as we move into like the middle of the season, is Frank Castle coming back as his Punisher from the Netflix Punisher series, the other Defender series. Technically, Punisher wasn't featured in the Defenders because they didn't actually create the Punisher TV show till after they'd already made their big plans to actually do the Defenders show. That was like part of the initial buy when Netflix was like, hey, Marvel, we want to do a bunch of Marvel shows. We'll give you a whole bunch of money for them. When they did that back in the day, that's when they planned to do the 4 different shows, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, then team them up in Defenders, and while that was going on, they introduced Punisher during Daredevil Season 2 and said, hey, this was awesome, why don't we bring Jon Bernthal back and give him his own show? So like the Punisher Netflix series became this extra thing that they didn't initially plan on when they were building the Defenders out. But because when you think of all the Marvel Netflix shows, you think of all of them together, Punisher gets looped into that, so you think of him as a Defender.
See you around, Red.
Now we have that big tease at the end of Season 3, R.I.P. White Tiger, didn't deserve to die. And it seems like we got one of those Punisher cops wearing Punisher body armor shooting him in cold blood in retaliation for what happened during the trial. Because Daredevil outed his identity to everybody in the city, basically pulling a Spider-Man No Way Home on him. That was like the entire plot of that movie. Too bad Doctor Strange wasn't around for them to ask to do another spell to get everybody to forget about it after the trial. At the end of last week's episode, a lot of people asking if White Tiger was wearing his amulet and he had his special powers, how was that Punisher cop able to surprise him and kill him in cold blood? Wouldn't he have detected him coming? My assumption is they're just messing with the way his powers work in the actual MCU universe here, like this ground level version of the character. They made it seem like the amulet's power just gave him enhanced strength, not completely enhanced senses like the comics. If they were being totally accurate to the comics, he would have detected that cop coming a mile away. And for those of you asking, I don't think that they killed him off specifically because the actor passed away in real life of cancer after they finished filming the season. I think they finished filming all of his scenes and then he passed away. So I think this was always the ultimate plan for the character in the new version of the show. But you remember, they actually Frankenstein created Season 1 with like 6 episodes worth of material that the previous creative team made before Kevin Feige fired all of them, and they rebooted the reboot of Daredevil Born Again. So it's kind of a weird situation watching these first couple of episodes, especially trying to figure out what came from the previous creative team and what was shot by the new team. For the most part, they said episode 1 was a brand new thing. Originally, the show was meant to start with what we saw during episode 2 and episode 3. The brand new creative team that they brought back from the Netflix series who made those Netflix shows shot a completely brand new pilot episode, episode 1. So all that stuff was brand new. So if the show feels kind of wonky, you're like, why are they still doing this story plot? Why do they have all these other characters they're trying to swap out for Karen Page and Foggy Nelson? Like, they just kill Foggy Nelson off so they could bring in some of these other characters. That's mostly because of what the original creative team did, and the brand new creative team sort of trying to work with that. So I think when they get to Season 2, because they're building Season 2 from the ground up, like, none of Season 2 had been shot when the original creative team was here. I think that'll be a better example of what this new creative team is doing, just because they have a chance to start completely fresh from the ground up with their brand new stuff.
In the absence of justice, the court can't punish this man, and I urge you to do so.
So honestly, I think a lot of the criticisms from season 1 so far are mostly due to that original version of the show that they were kind of saddled with, like, hey, we have a bunch of episodes, can you use this as part of the new stuff that you're doing? And we won't have to deal with that when we get to season 2, which they just started filming. We actually got some footage for that, and it's important to what's happening in this trailer here with the Punisher cops. We'll get into that in a second too, and some of Daredevil's new suits. There's a little more Muse going on in this trailer. We've seen in some of the previous trailers. Honestly, I think a lot of that stuff, like when they really start digging into Muse, is until a little bit later in the season. I think right now, they're slowly just teasing the character out before you really start to see him go nuts. And mostly they're dealing with the Punisher cops and introducing Frank Castle back into the story in a big way. I think that most of the Muse stuff, like when Daredevil's really going after Muse, all the scenes of him fighting in his lair that you see in the different trailers, is actually from like the last couple of episodes. I think a lot of the Daredevil and Punisher team-up stuff is from closer to the middle of the season in those groups of episodes. Not totally clear who the Punisher is talking about when he tells Matt, want to get your hands on someone, and then starts interrogating him, basically trying to interrogate his morality issues that he has because of what's going on with the Punisher cops and what's going on with Kingpin, and him not wanting to get his hands dirty again, not wanting to be Daredevil again at this point. And as a lot of you will realize, it's meant to be a comp back to their meeting during season 2 when he had him on the rooftop chained up, basically having the same conversation with him, you're one bad day away from being me. Basically, Punisher justifying his whole existence, like explaining his whole ethos for why he's doing all these things and why he's in the right and Daredevil is the person that has it all wrong. It's one of those really interesting narrative situations where you could take either side and you would be correct in both instances. Like the show itself tried to be relatively balanced in the way they provide their perspectives. Like Frank is meant to feel right in a certain context, but also Daredevil is right too. Like neither one of them is completely wrong. They're basically bringing that dynamic back when they first come together again. And just like they teased during Daredevil season 2, like we got a little bit of team up at the very end of the season where they helped each other out, like Punisher helped him out from the rooftop, but it wasn't a traditional superhero team up like you would normally expect. Like we saw them in the promos right next to each other like they were going to fight together, but in the actual episodes it was completely different. Now it seems like they're correcting their mistake, like their oversight, in actually having them team up on the street. Like all these scenes of them in the street seems like it's from much later in the series after they fully take on these Punisher cops. A really easy way to chart the timeline of the Punisher during this season is what his facial hair looks like. Look how disheveled he looks, like he has the giant beard when he first sees him. This is when Matt first goes to find him. My assumption is we'll either get a teaser towards the end of episode 4, or he will actually find him right at the end of episode 4, and then like their big team up will be episodes 5 and 6, and that's why they're airing them back to back, just because it's going to be a heavy Punisher arc across those episodes. All this footage of him in his Punisher armor inside that house fighting with Matt, notice he's clean shaven, seems like it's from much later in the season though, before like the last couple of episodes maybe when Daredevil goes up against Muse, like the actual main villain of the season. Even though these first couple episodes, they keep hyping these Punisher cops, I think that's just meant to be one of the villain storylines this season, like one of the antagonistic groups. For the most part, when they were pitching the season, they were mostly saying that Muse was going to be the actual main villain. In Kingpin, for example, would be an antagonist, these Punisher cops would be antagonists, but not like the sole focus of the season. All the stuff that Muse is supposed to be doing during the season, way more gruesome, way worse than what Kingpin and what the Punisher cops are doing, even though all those other groups all doing terrible stuff. I think that's also part of the idea that they want Kingpin to start out on an arc. Like they don't want him to start out being completely shady, completely evil. He starts out feeling like he actually does want to make New York City better, and then slowly descends back into his old Kingpin ways. So how do you make the main villain seem like less of a villain? You introduce an even worse villain, and that's really meant to be Muse. All the stuff with the Punisher cops seems like it's going to spill into season 2, because notice the footage where you actually see these cops wearing ATVF body armor that's designed to look like the Punisher skull logo, but it's all black. It just seems like they get a huge upgrade in season 2, and their special acronym stands for Anti-Vigilante Task Force. So it just sounds like Kingpin is going to co-opt this group, if he isn't already connected to them, and turn them into a much bigger, more well-funded thing, much more officially going around the city, trying to round up people like Spider-Man, Daredevil, the other heroes, pretty much every vigilante, good and bad.
We don't need a gun-toting vigilante who wears a skull on his chest, or a man who dresses in a spider outfit.
You have to remember during episode 1 when Punisher was giving his big address to the city, like his inaugural address after he'd been elected mayor, he was lumping in all the different types of superheroes and villains together as if they were all vigilantes. Basically saying that they were all bad, like he was even calling Maya, Echo, a vigilante. I myself was the victim of vigilante violence, basically explaining the time that Echo shot him in the face. So whatever winds up happening with this Punisher arc with the Punisher cops, it sounds like they will not resolve this in season 1. And because we're getting that Punisher movie, like that Punisher special presentation next year that will air alongside Daredevil season 2, it sounds like a lot of the plot will have something to do with that. So my assumption is they deal with some of these cops, don't completely get rid of the problem, then Punisher and Daredevil go their separate ways at the end of the season the way they did at Daredevil season 2, and Punisher goes off and starts dealing with this, and then Matt goes off and deals with the Muse problem. One of the other big bits of news for Daredevil Season 2 is that they cast Matthew Lillard as a mystery character. No idea who he's playing, if he's going to wind up being the secret main villain. It just sounds like he's going to be playing a big comic book character. Most people remember him from a bunch of different things, but he most recently just did Five Nights at Freddy, playing the main villain William Afton. Supposedly he's coming back in the sequel to that too. Real ones will remember him from the original Scream movie too as one of the villains of that film. We'll see how many episodes Punisher is going to be in this season and which episode Matt finally puts the costume back on. And if there's any other Easter eggs or references that you spotted that I haven't talked about in my previous videos, write them below in the comments, or big questions that you have. I'll include those in my future Daredevil videos. My full episode 4 video will post next week after they release it, and I'll probably be doing an Invincible season 4 video in the next day or two as well. I literally just posted my Invincible finale video. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, talk about villain characters. Negan from The Walking Dead came back as Conquest during the Invincible finale. Click here for that. It is peak. And click here for all my Daredevil videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.